Have you ever noticed how sometimes we don't just tell a story, we become that story? I do a lot of work within the narratives because I found them profoundly interesting. They start with a thought, with a feeling, and then over time, as we start repeating the story over and over again, we almost wear it like a skin. And it almost becomes part of our identity. We all have inner narratives that play out in our life. We have specific narratives, very personal ones, the ones we borrow from society, culture, family. We have very positive narratives, negative ones, the ones that feel convenient to tell, the one we remain trapped into, the one we never question or challenge, and the one we keep secret. The problem with narratives is that sometimes our vision and perspective becomes very narrow. And when we get stuck into this narrative, it's very difficult to notice that we are trapped in it. And also, we are not the writer anymore. We are played by their story, almost as if we lose control over it. The more we repeat it, the more powerful the narrative becomes. And as more people join in telling that story, the more that story becomes an energetic force. When a narrative gains energetic power, it can become a thought form. I made a few videos about thought forms, which are energetic entities that play in our subconscious mind, and they have their own agenda and they are made of specific things. When these thought forms are also shared by the collective, they become egregores. Egregores are extremely dangerous, especially when they are born with the purpose of controlling people or to convince people of something. We see this happening a lot with religious cults, spiritual cults, with governments. An egregore can be very powerful collective ideas that can be very convincing. And the more people feed into these ideas, into these beliefs, the more power they gain. Feels like we are pulled into a dream, but we don't know that we are into one. And there are signs that we can look to understand when we are played by a specific narrative, or we are connected to a specific thought form, or we are feeding into an egregore. One of the first signs is fear. When we feel not at ease, when the body starts tensing and becoming rigid, and there's a lot of overthinking, obsessive thinking, a sense of fatigue without knowing why, almost losing our identity, it may be that we are feeding into something that is not coming from a place of love, but also it's not coming from a place of truth, because we know that in this world, what is true to you, it may not be true to another person. And so by remaining objective and learning to discern, we also remain connected to our higher self and trust that we can make choices that align with our needs and desires rather than from a place of fear and control. If you wish to explore narratives more, you can find on my blog a PDF you can download, and there's more information about why we like narratives and stories so much and how they connect us. But let's focus for a moment on personal narratives. Let's imagine we have a friend that is called Jo, and this is how her story goes. People always leave me. No matter how much I give, I always end up alone. People never appreciate what I do for them. No one ever notices how much I care. And people are so ungrateful. Maybe I'm just not meant to be appreciated. When we fall into a narrative, we are not denying the feelings because the feelings are relevant and they're present. And for Jo, this is what's actually happening for her. This is an absolute truth. The problem with this narrative is that we fall into a victimized state, a martyr state, and the world becomes this negative, unfair place where we live. So what we want to do is to challenge these narratives that we have, especially because the brain is an interesting organ. When we continuously walk the same path, we reinforce these paths. So we are more likely to repeat specific cycles. And this becomes a self-fulfilling loop. Our brain almost expects this outcome and is scanning the environment to find it. When we finally notice these narratives and we become more and more aware of them, we can create a counter-narrative. We learn to shift perspective. It's almost like looking at the same object, but from different perspective. The object does not change, but your perspective, your perception of what you are experiencing does. This is true, but there are also other things that may be true that we are not yet able to see, or we may don't want to see and acknowledge, because there's an element of responsibility and acceptance that comes with it. For example, for Joe, a counter-narrative could be, sometimes people leave and sometimes they stay. Sometimes I don't express how I truly feel, yet I wish others could understand me without needing to explain. At times, I don't question my assumptions, and I may be wrong. I often give more than what I truly want to, hoping to feel appreciated and valued. And I feel hurt when that isn't reciprocated. But I also have the power to choose to step away from relationships that don't nourish me and to trust myself in doing so. I can choose to be with people who can meet me where I am, who see me, hear me, and value me. She is regaining power over her story, regaining control over a story, and she's now the writer of the story. She's no longer the character of the story. I'm going to offer a practical exercise for you to explore maybe one of your narrative, and then we're going to work with that narrative, noticing what happens when you tell that story, but also how you can challenge that story and create a counter-narrative. I have divided the exercise in 2 parts. Part 1, have some paper and pen with you. Find a nice, suitable place for this experience. And just take your time to relax your body, take a few breaths. And take a moment to curiously explore the inner narrative that has been living through you. And no judgment, no agenda, no trying to rationalize or analyze. Simply observe and embrace the narrative, embrace and accept the story as it's revealing itself. And you can imagine that the story belongs to a part of you, a specific character that is playing that story. And you may notice what that character is about. How does it make you feel? What kind of sensations this character is evoking in your physical body or on an emotional level? And just noticing what's present for you as you make that connection. Also noticing the tone of the voice, the posture of the character. Who do you become when you play that narrative, when you repeat that narrative? And then after observing that for a little bit, write your inner narrative as if you are speaking directly from that character. With presence, with awareness, take your time to write down the story. And then when you have finished, I want you to read that narrative out loud. And listen to that story being very open, almost as if you were listening to a friend telling you the story. And I'm going to give you a few reflection points that you can use to explore that story even deeper. Who created the story and when? And what is the purpose of that story? Is this story true in every single situation with all the people I know? Who benefits when I believe this story? Is this truly my story, or did I borrow it from someone else? Does it serve me, or does it hold me back? What else do I notice that I didn't notice before? And just sit with that reflection for a moment. After observing the impact of the story, take a few breaths, and we are going to create a counter-narrative and expand that story. Regaining your authority as a writer, the one that can choose perspective, meaning, and action in this story. So again, I'm going to give you a few reflection points that you can use to rewrite the story. What parts of the story are true, and what parts of the story may be assumptions that you haven't checked yet? And what parts have been exaggerated? What kind of words or repetitions are part of this story? What feels like an absolute truth? Who do I become when I step out of this narrative? How can I rewrite this story without blame, without judgment, without falling into victimizing myself or anyone else? And what truth about myself may be missing from this story? What choices or action could I take that the old story did not allow? How can I reframe this story from a perspective of growth, freedom, expansion, rather than from a sense of restriction and feeling limited by it? What perspectives or possibilities exist that I haven't explored before? And when you have done your reflections, I would like you to rewrite the story and noticing how it feels to change that narrative. And when you finished, I want you to again read it out loud and notice what has changed, if anything has changed within you. What are you noticing now? This is a very powerful exercise you can do when you feel stuck and disempowered by a narrative that feels very limiting in your life. And if you wish to explore narrative even deeper, please reach out and we can do this work together. And we can also look into archetypical and symbolic narratives, understanding inner scripts or life scripts. So feel free to reach out and we can start from there. If you have liked this exercise, please share how it felt to do it and anything else you wish to share. Have a lovely day.